Hi, everyone. Welcome to Two Guys Talking Sports. On today's episode, we covered the Lady Gamecocks as national champions, possibly the best season or the best champion in women's college basketball, at least in recent history. The Masters Week is here. Will a live player finally win it? Will Rory finally conquer the Masters? Or could it be Tiger with a miracle win again? We'll cover it on today's episode. Let's jump right in. Speaking of the Lady Gamecocks, 18.7 million viewers in a women's basketball game.
I saw something, and this was you have to give a ton of credit to Dawn Staley.
Mm-hmm.
We lose last year in the Final Four to Iowa. We replace every single starter from that team last year. She realized their weakness was the 3-point shot. And we addressed that, whether it was through freshmen coming in, portal addition, and pow. You got it. I mean, Dawn Staley's up there in the echelon of the greatest basketball coaches.
Exactly. And it's because of what you just said, that last year she had what was probably the worst three-point shooting team in women's college basketball. Yep. And that's what ended up costing them in, the Final Four last year.
Yep.
She lost all 5 of those starters. So, 1, you got a huge weakness. 2, you just lost every starter that got you there. Multiple times that got you there. You replace all of them, and then you fix your weakness and then win it all. And not only win it all, you didn't lose a single game.
Yeah, it's if you go back to 3 years, I think South Carolina has lost, 3 or 4 games?
4 games, I think.
The past 2 years, our only lost game was the Final Four game. And I think one thing that speaks about the Gamecocks, and I don't know if you've noticed this ever since when we won our Final Four game against NC State, dominated that game in the second half. You would have thought we weren't even playing in the national championship game because all they talk about is Caitlin Clark.
All they talked about when the buzzer ended was, oh, this is Caitlin Clark's last game. She's walking off the court. They're just looking at her, and me and Lauren were watching the game, and I was like, there's literally 8 to 10 other girls who just won a national championship, and you're completely ignoring them and what they just accomplished because you want to focus on someone who lost.
Yeah, it's
and not to say that Caitlin Clark didn't do a ton. And look, half of the viewers or more were probably there to watch her play. And she's done, and like Dawn Staley said, and that's another reason that Dawn is such an amazing coach, that in one of her greatest moments as a coach, she takes the time out to speak on behalf of another player and, congratulate them on what, an amazing career, what they did for the sport. She took the time out to do that. Cool. That's all fine. But look, ESPN, there was all these girls who put in just as much work, who did just as much and accomplished just as much.
We dominated all season.
Right.
And the one thing I love about, and I'm not going to say we watched every game because that would be disingenuous because I didn't even watch all the men's games.
Right.
Unfortunately. But the one thing I love about this women's team is there's not one person that they rely on.
Right.
I think in every game in the NCAA tournament, South Carolina had a different leading scorer.
Yeah.
National championship game, Tessa Johnson, true freshman. Chloe Kitts, Cardoso, Ashlyn Watkins. And another thing is we've got a rotation of 9 players that we just consistently run out there.
Right.
And honestly, the second, I guess you could deem them the second string, are probably just as good as other teams.
Starting 5.
Even Iowa's first team, outside of Caitlin Clark, I saw something. If you put Iowa starting 5 in South Carolina's lineup, what players would get the playing time? Caitlin Clark.
Yep.
No other player on there. And like you said, Caitlin Clark's earned, I guess, that reputation where she can get a lot of the praise because, that team runs through her.
Yeah.
South Carolina, there's not one. I guess you could say Camila Cardoso just because she's a 6'7" female basketball player is like a dime a dozen.
Yeah. Full Wiley makes some amazing plays too. But the thing is, you could literally just pick each one and you could go and say, look, this one, pow, she just drains 3. When you put it out there, she hardly misses.
Yep.
There's so many players, and if you just go back to when I think the Elite 8 game when we played North Carolina, maybe it was Sweet 16.
That was Sweet 16.
Okay, they showed that North Carolina's starting 5 was in the top 11 or 12 in starters minutes, and South Carolina was 300.
Yeah.
Because Dawn Staley, pretty much you have a starting five, but everyone plays the same amount of minutes. I mean, she's constantly putting them in there. And during this game with Iowa, you look, and at the end of the game, they showed South Carolina had 35 bench points, and Iowa had 0.
Yeah, 37.
0 bench points. You're not going to beat teams like South Carolina with just one player, and your bench gives you nothing.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a crazy stat, because if you kind of think it back after you saying that, I feel like a lot of Iowa's best players played the entire game.
Yep.
And you got to give credit to Raven Johnson, who was mostly the primary defender on Caitlin Clark.
Yep.
I mean, that game couldn't have started any better for Iowa. I mean, Caitlin Clark couldn't miss a thing. But you could tell as the game wore on and Raven Johnson and Bree Hall were just consistently in her face, and she wasn't getting very many open looks. They started getting tired. I mean, halfway through the fourth quarter, I think, the lead wasn't huge, but I think everybody kind of had an idea of, okay, South Carolina's kind of got this in the bag.
Right.
There's, she's just wearing down. But again, you would have thought South Carolina didn't even win the game the way that they talked about her the whole time.
It was extremely
irritating. And I get it. Like, that's their job. They need to talk about people, or, players that are gaining the most attention. Because I'll be honest with you, I kind of felt bad for Caitlin Clark, because people just, like, I don't want to cuss, but it's like they just trash her consistently.
Yeah.
Like, if you look at kind of like how the Mannings do that Manning cast, well, they have it for the women's, and I don't know if you saw this or not, but it's Sue Bird and Diana Taurasi, who are, most famously known for being at Connecticut. And dude, they kind of walked it back after the fact, but they just consistently trash Caitlin Clark.
Yeah.
Like, they just completely, like, not giving her, I guess, due credit or whatever, saying they take Paige Beckers over her. She's got another thing coming when she gets to the NBA. I'm sorry. There's a reason why the WNBA team Diana Taurasi plays for is already marketing the team that Caitlin Clark's eventually going to get drafted by, which is the Indiana Fever. Like that. But my thing, you're trying to build up women's sports, and especially the WNBA, because I know they have a problem with viewership.
Yeah.
Caitlin Clark's your golden ticket.
Right.
People are going to show up to watch her play. She's in it. There's a reason why Steph Curry's such an exciting player, because people love the three-pointer.
Right.
Like, there's nothing wrong with having a good big man or a big, person down low.
Right.
That's just not exciting to people. And the play she makes garners all that attention and draws that viewership into your team. Because this was the most watched basketball game in 5 years at any level.
Yeah.
Men or women, NBA, WNBA, collegiate.
She brings the views for sure.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's the good thing about the women's game compared to the men's game is you have that ability to create that star power, because it's just the society we're in, where she's going to take a pay cut to go to the WNBA.
For sure.
Whereas, they can.
Unless, hey, if she goes to the WNBA, she's got an offer on the table.
She's going to the WNBA.
That's going to be hard to pass up, though.
But there's a reason why you see a lot of the women's players after the WNBA season ends, they go and play in, Russia or China, like different European countries or Asian countries. They rely on endorsements and everything. So it allows that kind of time to build up, and you get to know these players. Whereas like in the men's game, it's either they're transferring so much you can't really associate one player with the team,
right?
Or they, if they're good enough, they just go straight to the NBA. So I feel like there were more players that you recognize on these women's team than you do on the men's team.
Yeah, and because they stay, like you said. But I think whether you like the way that she plays, I don't necessarily like the way that Caitlin Clark plays, but you can't diminish what she's done for the game and what she has the opportunity to do for a not flourishing league.
Model. It is. I mean, it's tough.
The WNBA. She has a chance to bring some notoriety, bring some more viewership to the WNBA. So, again, whether you like the way that she plays, whether you like sometimes the attitude that she has, the flops, the blatant calls that she doesn't get called.
That was irritating on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean,
her coach does it too.
Yeah, and there were plays, and someone cut up a clip of all season where she's literally just shoving players and getting no calls.
Yeah.
And so, again, whether you like any of that, you disagree with it, she has brought notoriety to the game. She has an opportunity to boost a
well, you got to
struggling league.
Yeah, and it's like I said, that's their golden ticket.
Yeah,
and for these, and I think this is what irritates me is because all these UConn used to just straight dominate women's basketball.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is. They won, it hadn't even been a decade ago. They won 4 straight national championships. Yeah. Whereas now they're not. They made it to the Final Four this year, but this was probably one of their worst seasons. They were a 3 seed in the NBA tournament, in the tournament. And normally they're a 1 seed or maybe even a 2 seed. Mm-hmm. And it's these legendary collegiate basketball players that all went to either Tennessee or UConn. And think they're like gatekeepers. And if it's not a UConn player, they either don't like the way they play. Gino Auriemma said this, made comments several times about the way South Carolina and Dawn Staley's teams play. And it's irritating. And I like it because these other teams are dominating now.
Right, exactly.
Like in Iowa or Stanford, South Carolina.
LSU.
And it's just like you're trying to grow your league, but the person that's coming, you're just consistently trashing and saying she's got another thing coming for her when she gets to the league.
Look, if like I said, I've never had a problem with I've never had a problem with fans online. I know that you don't like it very much, but it's going to be what it's going to be. But I think that the pundits and the people that are supposed to uplift the game on a broad spectrum, and for them to be trashing her in the way that they are, it's easy. People do it to LeBron. You can go on there and you can nitpick his game, but then you can still give him praise for what he's done for the game. Yeah. I don't like LeBron at all, but he brings notoriety to the NBA. Same thing with Caitlin Clark. But, at the end of the day, as much notoriety as you're giving her, you got to give it to the girls who just won as well. Yeah,
exactly.
And it was like they were completely overlooked because of Caitlin Clark.
But I felt that's how it was all season. It was all. And rightfully so, but you had LSU coming into the offseason. Like I said, Caitlin Clark and South Carolina and Dawn Staley, they just kind of sat back in the shadows, just dominated all season. Right. It's not like they played a weak schedule outside of the conference schedule. I mean, they played. I'm pretty positive Stanford.
Yeah,
they played
UConn. A lot of
they played these top teams. They started the season in Paris against Notre Dame, and they just quietly dominated the entire season.
And I think it was because there was no big name player like Caitlin Clark, like Angel Reese coming into the season because they replaced all 5 starters. And Dawn Staley was like, look, I'm going to replace them. We're going to fix our issues. We're just going to win.
Yep.
And we don't have to. And you saw it even in, I can't remember, there was a tournament or something that they won. And one of the girls was like, I don't know, doing something with her hands in one of the team pictures. And Dawn kind of swat her away, and the rest of the players were just like, don't. Like, she has a hold on those players. And even in, what happened with Cardoso in the SEC tournament, like, she immediately came out, she was like, that's not us.
Yeah.
We don't do that. We don't act out. We don't do these things.
And the LSU coach did the exact opposite.
Did the exact opposite, yeah. So that's why.
But
love her or hate her for her political views sometimes.
Yeah.
As a coach and as she handles basketball, she's one of the best to do it.
I don't want to. I wish you would have said that because I want.
I'm not going to delve into it. I'm just saying because someone's going to want to.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm not, because I strictly, for what I watch Dawn Staley for, I don't watch her for anything else other than basketball.
Well, guess what? Like, we don't have to agree on everything.
Right, exactly.
Like, at the end of the day,
we don't agree. So we don't agree with everybody on Caitlin Clark.
Yeah. Me and you don't agree on a lot of stuff.
No. Well, most stuff.
Yeah, but, major props. I mean, this is Dawn Staley's 3rd national title, her 2nd
and I don't think 3
it's gonna
years.
Be her last. No, especially because, like I said,
the way that she's built these teams now is like she can just do it with an entire bench because, like you said, our second string could be a starting 5
and that's probably who it's going to be. I don't know who all we're losing. Pau still technically has another year.
Right. I think because of the COVID year.
Back. When COVID hit, man, it's just completely thrown me off with how many years these players get. It's insane. But yeah, I know Cardoso's already declared for the draft. But like I said, you got Fawala coming back, Tessa Johnson, potentially Pau. I don't know about Raven Johnson, Bree Hall.
Again, with women's basketball, they can make more money in college. Yeah, it benefits them to stay as long as they can.
And it's not even just women's basketball; it's a lot of collegiate sports.
It is. Yeah.
I mean, unless
you're like top tier, guaranteed #1 draft pick in college football or in NCAA
and depending
men's
what
basketball,
position you play,
right? It's almost benefits you to just get that NIL, and then move on.
Yeah. So, but again, perfect season, Dawn Staley.
Yep.
We were the first team, I think, since 2016 to go undefeated, which I think UConn was the last team to do it. So, and for people watching, they're going to have like a parade or something on Saturday in Columbia. Okay. So if you want to go to that, this episode will be out before then.
All right, let's move on. Men's national championship. We did have
before we get started. I'm sorry. Before we get started, I love how this game was at 3 p.m. on a Sunday.
Yes.
I wish it was a little bit later, maybe like 5 or 6. Right. But 3 p.m. is perfect, and that segues perfectly into this game.
Yeah, but before we get to the time slot, we can talk time slot first. 9:30 for a championship game on a Monday night is absolute insanity. It's almost worse than the national championship in football that starts at 8:30, 8:45. At least
in basketball, like it's more than likely going to take game. 2 hours.
Right.
Football, it can be 3 hours, could be 4 hours. Hell, it could be 5 hours.
9:30 at night is insanity on a Monday night. Now, if you told me 9:30 on a Saturday night, fine. Yeah. But 9:30 on a Monday night is insanity.
Yeah. I try my best to watch it.
It's almost like the people that schedule these times have just never spent a single day on the East Coast. No, they definitely never worked on the East Coast.
And that's what I hate, because it's like you're not really punishing one time zone, but it's you're starting it late because people on the West Coast, it's 6 o'clock there. Yeah. People are just getting off work, but it's like, okay, by the time this game ends, it's 7, 8 o'clock on the West Coast, but it's 12. It's midnight on the East Coast. Yeah. It's insane, and and
for that reason, I didn't watch a single second of this game.
I watched it, but it's I'm not gonna lie to you, I was falling asleep.
Yeah,
because I was watching on my iPad in my bed, and I was about to fall asleep.
Yeah. Before we get into the game, we did have our bracket winner, Mr. Landry Collins.
Landry, he was. I think his. One thing I will say we need to do better, or I need to do better, because I made the bracket. There was one person who had, I think, 8 or 9 brackets.
Yeah. Hedging bets.
And it was, that won't happen again next year.
A lot of busted brackets within the first week. I know mine was. Yours was.
Mine was basically done after the first day.
You tried to blame me because I talked you out of picking certain games.
You got my head about not picking my upsets.
You are 45 years old. You can make your own decisions.
I'm 34. But he knows ball. Mr. Landry Collins, he's from Dillon.
Yep.
We'll be sure to reach out to him. We can get him a Two Guys Talking Sports hat
and t-shirt.
Hopefully he will graciously accept it, and maybe he'll even post a photo or something with how good it's going to look. We'll be reaching out to Mr. Landry Collins to get with him so he can get his winning prize. Maybe even in the future, maybe if he wants to do it this year, we can get him on the show.
We'll see. But thanks for everyone who did participate in the brackets. Yeah. I think we ended up, if you take out the one person who had like 8, probably
we had
somewhere
about
like 30 brackets. So,
which is good.
Yeah. So thanks for everyone that participated. UConn becomes the first team to repeat since Florida in 06-07. Yep. 75-60 beats Purdue. Again, you can give the take. I didn't watch this. At 9:30, dude, I got 2 kids. And one's got to school. One is, 9, 10, almost 10 months old. I'm going to bed.
I guess the one thing I'll say is it's kind of like how UConn was in the Final Four game against Alabama. It was a close game for the most part, but then it's in those final moments, UConn just dominates. They make adjustments at the end, or maybe at halftime. Dan Hurley, heck of a coach. Purdue has Zach Edey, who pretty much could do whatever he wanted the entire tournament, but UConn has their own big man. I think Zach Edey had a dominating game, but UConn's just too strong.
You can't depend on one player.
And another thing is, similar to South Carolina women, UConn had to replace a lot of their players from last year's team. So major credit to UConn, but the
9:30 time slot, dude.
I watched, but I'll be honest, I
think that really and truly, if you had, if NC State would have made it, more people probably would have stayed up for that. But it was almost like, all right, well, these are the 2 that everybody thought from the beginning, so one of them's going to win.
I would have watched more if it was just. I watched it, but I didn't watch it like I watched a South Carolina game on Sunday.
Right.
Whereas, like, I can tell you just about
everything
that happened that
right.
game. I couldn't tell you. I mean, it was just a back and forth game, and then UConn just does what UConn does, and they just take over. I mean, I don't know how else to say it.
They just got to figure out a different way to do these Final Fours.
My thing is like, why are they so hell-bent on having it on a Monday?
I've never understood it. I just feel like more people will watch on the weekend. It just...
Yeah.
It's going to happen.
Yeah, it's not like you're competing with the NFL playoffs.
And you're not really competing with the NBA right now.
No. Well, nobody watches the NBA anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the NBA, the time that people are going to watch the NBA is in like 2 weeks when the playoffs start.
Yeah.
And you're done.
And
college basketball's done.
And the NBA playoffs last like 8 months.
Yeah, so you don't have to compete against them.
Yeah.
Especially in a one-game scenario. Like if you said, all right, there's 16 games today, somebody might say, well, I'd rather watch my favorite NBA team than follow these. But in a one-game situation, I mean, honestly, what they should do is set it up to where you have, and they already do this during the major tournament, is play all Final Four games, men and women, on the same day. Play it on Friday or Saturday or whenever, and then play both national championships and just gain both of those viewers.
Yeah.
Do the women's at 3 o'clock on Sunday, do the men's at 6 o'clock on Sunday, and just segue from one national championship to the other.
Yeah.
And it's not like you have to, get one team off the court from celebrating and all of that.
Yeah.
You got them in 2 different cities. Just change the broadcast.
Yeah. Or even if you just do it, excuse me, like you could do one on maybe like a Thursday, the other one on a Friday.
Something.
Because, I mean, honestly, you could do 6, 7 o'clock, 9 o'clock. I don't know. There's got to be a different formula that they have instead of just playing these games at 9:30 on a Monday.
It's the people that aren't having to go and go to work at 8 o'clock on Monday morning and 8 o'clock on Tuesday morning, 8 o'clock and or 7 o'clock, whenever.
Yeah.
It's these people that are just kind of walking in and playing in this event, or they just might they're getting paid either way.
It's money. It's money.
Yeah. But congratulations to UConn. I don't think it was. I honestly think coming into the tournament, everybody thought it was going to be one of these two.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Well, more UConn than anything,
Right.
because you never really know with Purdue which team, how they're going to do in the tournament. But yeah, I think everybody predicted UConn to either win, and you could see in our bracket challenge, it was either UConn or Purdue, and there was a couple, Auburn, maybe a Kentucky,
right.
or a Duke. The guy that made like 12 brackets had Duke win one of them.
Oh, man. All right, just to recap college basketball, and shocking, at least to me, John Calipari leaving Kentucky.
I think
wasn't let go.
I think this was
maybe a mutual decision.
Yeah, I think I heard this analogy on like a podcast where it's like they wanted to break up. It's like, your girlfriend, or you sit down with your girlfriend.
Yeah.
Like, listen, I really don't think this is working out. It's almost like if you're trying to divorce somebody, it costs you more money to divorce.
Right.
You don't make enough money to divorce. I think this was a perfect, not a perfect way. He's going to Arkansas. It's not like he's going to be able to do anything he didn't have access to at Kentucky.
Yeah.
But I think this was, I don't think many Kentucky fans are upset that he's leaving.
No, I think that it was time for him to leave in the view of Kentucky fans' eyes. Arkansas, I don't think that it's going to be like, all right, they're the favorites now. No. I think that, he may get a few better players to come to Arkansas.
Not better. I mean, but it's Kentucky.
Yeah.
The one, and this is something I've been not stewing on, but it's one thing I wanted to say. Kentucky is, and this is just for college basketball, Kentucky, Big Blue Nation is like the Dallas Cowboys. And I'm saying in their fans. Mm-hmm. You go to any time the Dallas Cowboys play away, majority of the time, they're more than the home team.
But does it stay like that now without Calipari?
Yeah, it was like that before he got there.
Yeah.
So I liken to John Calipari now to kind of how Jimbo Fisher is in college football.
Yes,
where his way of playing is not that style anymore.
But he doesn't change anything.
And he's not adjusting.
Yeah,
clearly, I mean. He won them a national championship. They should always be grateful for that. But he
hasn't done anything.
He hasn't won an SEC championship in who knows how many years. He hasn't really been successful in the NCAA tournament the past
he's lost the first
half
round,
decade. He hasn't made it out of the
3
first
years?
week in the past 3 years.
Yeah,
I think they may have won a game, but they didn't make it to the Sweet 16.
Right.
And that's not something a Kentucky, who's a blue blood, wants.
So who do they get?
There's a lot of names floating out. You make people are saying you make Dan Hurley say no. And here's the thing, and we might get crap for this because it's Kentucky, but I think Kentucky thinks they're bigger than what they actually are. Mm-hmm. And I mean, maybe a decade ago, you could probably, some of these players or coaches they're thinking is a good thing, but people are, I was talking to a friend of mine who's a Kentucky fan. She's, some people are a little delusional thinking Jay Wright or Brad Stevens with the Celtics is going to want to come to them.
No. Why would Brad Stevens leave his comfy job where he's on track right now to be the GM of a team that could win the NBA Finals that he put together?
Won't. The Celtics will blow it in the playoffs.
They've been the 1 seed
do.
for the last 2 weeks, and everybody else is just fighting for a spot.
But
I'm saying they're on track. I'm not saying that they are. I'm saying they're on track, and he put together the best team in the NBA right now. Why would he leave that to come and have to recruit? And recruit players that are going to leave him a year later.
People have mentioned Billy Donovan with the Bulls, which I think if you were asking him maybe 5 years ago, I think he would leave because the Bulls are kind of a crapshoot. Yeah. They're a terrible run.
It's hard for NBA coaches to want to come. It's the same thing with NFL. It's hard for NFL coaches to want to come into this system of how college works.
Well,
now.
I mean, you're seeing head coaches in college football leave and take demotions.
Yeah.
People mention Nate Oates, but he released a statement last night saying he's not going anywhere.
Right.
So, I mean, I think Bryce Drew, his name mentioned, which is the
It'll probably end up being Baylor. Similar to what Alabama did, where they just didn't get the name everybody was expecting, but a solid coach.
But see, Kentucky expects that.
Right. Well, Alabama does too. They kind of expected. Yeah.
Okay.
They kind of expected when Saban, a legendary coach, left that all right, whoever we want, wherever they're at, we'll get them. Yeah. And it wasn't like that. Like Dabo was one of the top, and he just.
I don't think Dabo was ever.
I'm saying in their minds, they thought like if we want Dabo, he's going to come here. If we want Jim Harbaugh, he's going to come here. If we want, Bill Belichick, he's going to come here. And it just isn't that.
But I think they got the guy, their leader from the beginning, in Kalen DeBoer.
Right.
But yeah, honestly, man, I don't know. I really don't know who they go after because I think people who everybody maybe expected to have the most juice behind the rumors squashed it last night. And obviously you take that with a grain of salt in today's day and age. Kentucky.
Sometimes it's easy to come out and squash those rumors until they put a contract in front of you.
But I think he had and I've seen two different numbers. Like initially I thought I saw his buyout was $18 million from Alabama, but my friend said she saw 10. So I don't know what the actual number is. So you got to factor in buyouts, which I don't think that's a big deal for Kentucky.
No.
But yeah, it's the end of an era. I think it should have ended a few years back.
Yeah. It's not a surprising end.
No. I saw rumors where
what was surprising is how, I guess, quickly it happened.
I'm surprised
and that he found another. It was just like
I'm
going here.
It all started because SMU is joining the ACC because USC's coach left his position. Southern Cal, not South Carolina, left his position to go to SMU. Musselman, and this is what I saw on a podcast where Musselman doesn't really stay in one place too long.
Yeah.
So then he took USC job. So that opens up Arkansas. And I think one of the big donors for Arkansas, I don't know if he's good friends with Calipari, but I know they had a big hand in getting Calipari to Arkansas, the Tyson chicken place. So yeah, it's not like Calipari's got more resources going to Arkansas. Right. It's not like he's going to come in.
I think it's just a fresh start for him. He can come in and basically do what he's been doing, and maybe expectation wise, it's not going to be as much. Obviously, with the name that he is, he's going to bring expectations, but it's not like what you said with like Big Blue Nation just thinks that like they should win it every year.
And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's kind of like
you can't think that when you're not.
You can say that about yourself with our sports, but
yeah, I mean,
I'm not having another.
I mean,
it's just the day and age in sports where your name alone doesn't really cut it anymore with recruiting.
Especially in college sports.
I don't know what NIL packages are like, but they said Calipari is going to have like a $5 million budget to work at Arkansas, that will work, but it's not like he's got more, like I said, more resources. So, but yeah, I think you'll ask any Kentucky fan, I think they're okay with him leaving.
Yeah.
But it's all going to depend on who they get.
I agree. We shall see. Moving on from college basketball and ending March Madness and probably the best tournament in basketball, we move on to the best tournament in golf, which is the Masters.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, hell, you took the whole week off.
I did.
For this.
Well, not for the tournament, no. Just needed some time off. But, yeah, it kind of worked out where it just happened to be this week.
Yeah, sure. Favorites to win?
I don't know.
You obviously watch a lot more golf than I do and keep up with a little bit more. You know,
here's the thing with golf. It's like it's tough. Like you can always there's always the favorites like a Scotty Scheffler, John Rahm, Brooks Koepka, who just he sucks in other tournaments, but when it comes to majors,
and he's always said that too. He's just like, look, I don't really care about these other tournaments, but when it comes to the majors, like I'm dialed in, I'm locked in.
I think he shot 7
win.
over in the tournament last week for Liv.
And he'll come in, on Thursday and shoot 7 under.
Yeah, and you never really know because you would love to pick like a younger person who maybe has never played there, but it's playing this golf course is just all about experience and knowing when and where to hit it, what your misses are.
And sometimes even the experience doesn't help because like you have a player like Rory who's done it so many times and he just cannot get over the hump.
He can't
so like for me, one of my favorites or who somebody I'd like to see win is him. I'd love to see him win it and finally get over that hump because that would complete the Grand Slam for him. Yep. So
yeah, I mean, you got like I said.
Do I think he'll win it? No, I don't because he's never shown us in the past that he just has what it takes with this course. Yeah. And sometimes you just have those courses that, for whatever reason, you just cannot play it.
The thing with Rory is, though, is like he missed the cut last year, but you look at the previous year where he has like one bad-ish round,
right?
But then he comes out on like a Sunday and just like he shoots
Why
6, 7
didn't you do
under.
that the last 3 days?
But that's the thing about golf. It's like you either have it that day or you don't. It's just like in baseball, like, you're going to have a slump. And unfortunately, you don't really have a big enough sample size, especially in golf where it's like, you get 2 rounds to make the cut. If you don't make the cut, you're done for that specific tournament. And, it's a Jordan Spieth. His play is just so erratic, man. But he always plays good at Augusta. Will it be a live player, John Rahm, he's the defending champion? Will he repeat it? I don't know. I mean, he's new on the live tour. Is it going to be a no name? Not a no name,
right?
But can it be like a Tyrrell Hatton,
unexpected,
or like a Phil Mickelson had a big run last year in the final round, or is it Patrick Reed, Dustin Johnson? You just really know.
Or is it Tiger? I mean, he cut out 6.
Yeah, no, it's not Tiger.
I mean,
he can barely walk,
but he hasn't had 6 in a week.
I mean, there's nothing about that.
Who comes out and says that, dude?
Yeah, it wasn't him who said that.
I mean, but he ain't came out and said, "Look, I never said that."
There's nothing flat about that golf course.
Right.
Like the TV doesn't do it justice. Like the first time I ever went there, like the way you walk in, like the first thing you see, like when you walk into the course, not away from like the initial entrance where you pass the driving range, the first hole you see is the number 1 tee box, which the tee box is here, and then it's just like that, and then it just dips down way like that. And majority of the time, you're depending how far you hit it or what club you hit it on that first hole, is you're hitting off an uphill slope.
Right.
So that changes the way the ball trajectory goes. For normal amateur players like us, there's no really flat lies on that golf course.
Yeah.
And it's a tough course. But the thing is, like, they talk about how tough it is, but they shoot double digit under par every tournament almost. Yeah. It's just with the way golf is played now with technology and all these clubs and golf balls. And
again, some of it is the experience of, I know this course. I know
there's a reason.
I know what I've done in the past that didn't work. Yeah. And we're, obviously we're going to try something different here.
Yeah. There's a reason why you mostly see the same type of. It's very rare if like a rookie wins it.
Right. Like when Spieth came out and won, a few years ago.
But he had lost in the final in the previous year. Right. He was in the final group, I think, with Bubba, and that pressure, I think, got
That's
to him a
another
little bit.
one that's played that court, always played it well, is Bubba.
No, Bubba don't have a shot. I think he's.
They said that every time that he's won it too.
But he's in the twilight of his career. I don't think he's. I mean, he's not playing good.
Yeah.
You know, the one thing with Liv is these players don't really play a lot leading up to the Masters. Where like on the PGA Tour, you can if you want to.
Yeah.
You know, I think Liv has had maybe 3 or 4 golf tournaments since then, or to begin their season. They played last week, but again, if I had to choose one, I would probably say Brooks Koepka.
He loves the majors.
Because with Scotty, if you took if he didn't have to putt, I think he would win every tournament. Because if you look at the tournaments that he plays in and the like statistics for each tournament, he's usually up there at the top, except for putting.
Right.
I know he's changed his putter. He's got a putting coach, so if his putts are dropping, he's dangerous. I think he could win just about every tournament. But putting's
another one that
putting's a big thing.
You know, I'm not sure how he's playing right now, but Justin Thomas. You just never know.
Well,
you never know with him. He's like a Spieth. Where like, dude, they could be playing bad for 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah. Well,
and then just get in the right mindset and just come out and dominate.
He's recently parted ways with his caddy, Jim Mackay, Bones Mackay, who was Phil's longtime caddy. Who you want a caddy that knows that golf course, which is why going to the women's amateur that was played on Saturday, which was really good. A lot of those girls that play will, because the first 2 rounds are at a course off-site, and then the final round is at Augusta National. They'll actually get a local caddy that knows that course because you need to know the course. You know, it's you especially like in those tournaments, it's usually like a family member or a golf coach that does it, but you can kind of get away with that at a local course. But this course, you need somebody that's knowledgeable of that course. Yeah. And JT, I don't know if he's going through swing changes, but normally when you're not playing good, there's always change, and it's usually the caddy or like a swing coach. Well, Justin Thomas's swing coach.
You don't want to be going through changes when you come here.
And Justin Thomas's swing coach is his dad, so he's clearly not going to fire him. So it's naturally just going to be your caddy. I mean, I would love for Max Holman to win it.
I want Rory to win it. That's what I'm pulling for.
That's the one thing I love about golf is that you don't really have a favorite. Like, you know, obviously you won't. If Tiger would win, that'd be perfect. But you know what? People aren't going to be mad if a Sahith Theegala wins or a Max Holman or a Tony Finau win it. That's the great thing about golf is even if you have a favorite golfer, you don't hate the other ones.
You almost don't have like, this is my guy. You may have I don't like that guy, but everybody else I'm cool with.
And you don't even really see it that much in golf.
Right. And you don't like, and almost, it's almost like with Justin Thomas, whenever he did the thing where he was kicking out fans or whatever, I think some people were out on him for a while.
Yeah.
But then they just like, all right, I'm cool with him again.
And the media would make you think like the players hate each other that are on the PGA Tour and live, but that's not the case.
Right. They all are friends. They're going.
They all live near each other.
Exactly. They're going and playing and vacationing together.
Yeah. So it's
they all like each other.
And so it's and not all of them. Like I know there's one player in particular on live that there's one player I think everybody hates.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna say his name because he might sue us. He sues everybody else. Yeah, so the thing with golf tournaments, you just never know. Like somebody could come in playing very hot and he's going to be the odds-on favorite to win, but he could not even make the cut at this tournament. Right. So it's, I would pick Brooks Koepka, but again, I wouldn't be upset if somebody else wins.
Yeah, I'm pulling for Rory this week. I just love to see him finally get over that hump.
Yeah.
Do I think it'll happen just from experience and past?
Well, he's also been under, I think, a lot of pressure the past couple of years, like when this whole live tour started and he became like the spokesperson for the PGA Tour and took a lot of heat. And, you know, I think after the Masters last year, I think he took a step back and then, you know, the whole merger thing happened. So I think once that happened,
hopefully he can just come in and play a little bit more free.
He's just like, I don't care. He's like, I'm just going to play.
You'll almost know how he's going to do those first round. If he comes out not, obviously he could always end up having that good Sunday, but I'm saying in terms of is he going to compete on Sunday to be going for it?
Look at John Rahm last year. I think he doubled or tripled the number of his first hole. I think he started like 4 over, but then he went on to win. So the one thing about golf is like you have to be mental tough because you can't let a couple bad holes kind of mentally impact you because it can snowball quickly out there.
Yeah, because somebody could jump out and be 4 or 5 under, and then one hole just get them
and
back.
that's just not a course that is. You have to be perfect on every shot because which is how
it's unforgiving.
It's how majors should be. It's not supposed to be a course where you shoot 30 under par. Like it's a major. It's supposed to test you. It's not supposed to be easy. And so we'll see.
Yep.
I mean, it's Tuesday. Par 3's tomorrow. Starts Thursday morning, so I'm pumped.
So that wraps up the episode. We'll be back next week to
Start some baseball.
Yeah.
Start some baseball.
We haven't talked about the Braves yet. I've got some thoughts on them, but I want some time to really delve into that. So we've concluded college basketball.
Clemson had their spring game this past weekend, and from what I saw, people are not happy with Cade Klubnik.
Go figure. Well, I mean, we've been saying that for 2 years now.
Yeah.
South Carolina's spring game will be coming up. We'll get into that probably first week of May.
Yeah.
So a lot of things coming up, some variety here, but we will cover what happens at the Masters. We normally get together on Sunday of the Masters to watch.
Yep.
We'll do it again. We may even set the camera up and go live for 20 or 30 minutes at some point.
We're going to play golf.
Just to check in. Yeah.
Someone must be watching the kids Saturday. You reached out to him. I was like, what is going on? I was like, he don't ever do this. Yeah.
I got to go knock the dust off. I got to go get my clubs out the building and get the spider web.
Probably got rust on them.
Not rust, but spider web for sure.
Yep.
So we'll see you next week.
Thank y'all.